The biggest issue in terms of contact errors that I see players struggle with would be heel strikes, toe strikes. Probably mostly heel strikes, but there's plenty of people that hit it on the outer edge of the toe too. You can only have 4 possible contact errors. I know some people freak out and like everything's wrong, and I'm like, no, not everything's wrong. One of the 4 contact errors, possibly 2 at the same time, can happen, meaning you can only heel it at once. You cannot heel and toe it at the same time. You can only hit it low on the face or high on the face. You can't do that at the same time. So you could hit it on the heel low, heel high, low toe, high toe, or center in the face more so. Okay? You go low center, middle, high center. The idea that you could skull ball, top thin skulls are low on face. Chunk fats would get it higher on face. Heel strike, toe strike. This video is to give you the last 2 drills you'll ever need to fix your heel and toe strike issues so you can hit the ball more solid and gain a ton of distance and stop always feeling like you didn't know what went wrong. But you also have to, after a shot, to be able to identify it, you got to be able to feel what just happened, whether it hit the heel or the toe. Heel shots are going to feel clanky and the face will shut. Toe strikes, if you hit the toe, the face will spin open, so you might feel a twist in your hands and off the outer edge of the club. Either way, use Dr. Scholl's to verify a measure. Now let's explain the only reason that we heel or toe a golf ball. All right? For as long as I can remember as a kid, they always said the idea at address is you have to be able to measure distance from a ball. Some coaches will tell you cowabunga hand or surfer dude hand. That's not really the concept here. It's a misunderstanding because each golf club is a different length. So you're a different distance from the ball with every golf club. With a lob wedge, you're going to be closer to that golf ball by far than you would with a driver. What you can measure, though, is arm space. All right? Whether you have wide arm space at address or tight, narrow arm space at address, the concept becomes this. If let's say I go wider in space. If this is the space I start with, I have to reestablish that arm space. If I over-establish it, I'd heel the heck out of it. If I under-establish it, I'd toe the hell out of it. And that could be whether you start close or far. After I go over the drills, the 2 that you'll need to fix this for the rest of your golf career, especially if this is your now understanding of this, will be a Taylor Gooch, and I'll also look at Brandt Snedeker. Taylor being more of a normal, probably what most consider wider spacers, like a Brooks Koepka, DJ, John Rahm, versus a Brandt Snedeker, who I'll show, and a Keegan Bradley. They get very close to it. So it's never a conversation of whatever space you start with at address, whether that be tight or wider, will that guarantee anything? I think people think if they heel the ball, because they get too close, potentially, what really happens here is if you're a close player where you get close to it, you then have to be really good at reestablishing a nippy, tight space here. Okay? If you don't and you go over it, you will heel it. Okay? If you actually came back under it, and you even got too much, you could still toe that from there. So there is no guarantee. Same with being wider. I think people think if you get farther from the ball, it'll help you stop heeling it. Let's go with the extreme, right? Now, would it be very hard for me to heel it from here? Yes. So most likely with my arms, even if they extend out enough, would I still come inside that ball because I can't get back out to it? Possible. But from here, I could also still go like this, fall a little forward, and get my arms plenty out over into that heel. So again, whatever arm space you start with, whether it be wider or tighter, it always has to be reestablished. One simple concept you could do, take your lead hand out, put your golf club on the ground, just keep it in place, don't move it. Take your right hand, bend and hinge the elbow and the wrist, slap it out every time. Do little half swings. The clapper, the louder the clap, the better you reestablish the arm space. If you go like this, you heeled it. If you go like this, you toed it. You came way inside of it or way outside of it. So you're trying to learn how to come right at it, okay? The other concepts and drills. So, the 2 most popular, the gate drill, as we see here where our Dr. Scholl's was in the middle of that gate, or a constraint of something on the inside-outside to do a high-low drill and a low-high. I'll come back to that. Let's go first with the gate drill. You can take the tees, set it in a way that the club will sit perfectly into that gate through it. Meaning about a finger and a half on each side is fine. Don't make it so tight that this is almost undoable. Don't make it so wide where what was the purpose? You understand? But the concept is really as simple as just saying, if you hit one of these tees, your arm space either came too far off body or too close to body, okay? So if we take our practice swings in that gate every single time, all right, nick that outside tee. So now I have two options. I can either try to lower that arm space versus it getting raised off, or I can come back the tiniest bit. I might have been a hair closer to dress. Either can be correct. It's not a conversation of one's going to fix the other. You have to play around with this with the gate drill. That was better. So me just slightly backing up a millimeter or so. And I'm a tight spacer because I tend to toe the ball. So I don't like to have a wider space like a Brooks Koepka or DJ. I'm a little better with my arms a little bit more on my body than off my body. So you could define the two types of spacers. Elbows on as a tight spacer, elbows off as a wider spacer. Instead of thinking that surfer dude cowabunga hand's going to solve your problem every time. That's just not the way it really works. Now, you place that ball as centered as you can get it. I would definitely place it. Don't just be sloppy and lazy with this. Let's aim this the tiniest bit more to the right for this shot. Good. All right. Go through my routine. Gotta kick some butt for the next tour tonight. Good swing. Mostly centered. And bite. A couple of feet from the hole. So as we can see here, dead center is right here. So it's just slightly heel quadrant. But I'll take that. If anything, I always look at it as like a shade of like this is heel, this is centered, this is toe. So this still fits mainly into the center versus the heel. So if I put my fingers on the actual side here, you'll see I can still see the actual mostly shading of the area left by the ball on the Dr. Scholl's. Whereas that would be toe and that would be center. So that was just maybe about 5 millimeters off heel, mainly centered though. Okay, so if I kept heeling it, I would just leave out this one and start to remove this. You can always go to just one constraint. Constraints that work even better, pieces of wood, all right? You can make the gates more this way or this way. On the outside, you can literally put anything that's not going to damage your club. Head cover, your putter head cover works great, driver head cover, a tee, another ball potentially if you really want to. Pieces of wood on either side. If you're going to do the wood, though, make sure you can go to like Home Depot and get those painter, I forgot, tabs is what one of my students called it, I guess. It's very thin, okay? So you don't want this to be more than maybe, I think that's 1/4 inch. And then this is 6 inches, okay? That way, there is still room for the club to come from inside and on that arc again. You don't want anything ever, an object that's too long right here because it is going to neutralize our path too much. So players that try to practice with alignment sticks, honestly, that's probably not a good idea because it does ruin a lot of exit path on certain clubs, especially driver. So you can always use pieces of wood. Now, the last drill, the concept of arm space, and let's drastically learn to change. So if you're a healer, let's start with that one first, the idea of the high-low versus low-high. This side of the chopstick will be the actual high side. This is the low side. Get a chopstick. It's a great way. Everybody's got a drawer full of chopsticks from Chinese restaurants. Just grab one. The high side, low side, meaning low closest to me, high side farther away. For the healers, your arms come too far off the body. I'll even explain in a minute how path has nothing to do with any of this, because people always think if you're over the top and out to in, you'll just automatically heal the ball. Not the case. Not even the idea if the face is open or closed. It's purely just an arm space conversation. Talk to Adam Young. He'll definitely agree with me on this. So you start on the high side. And you want to back up a lot here to give a very wide space, but your goal is to hit the low side. So you're going to take a wide space arms and then come back narrow in, because you want to learn how to have a wide space and then come in and then have a very narrow space arms. So you learn not to get your arms so far off the body when you actually hit the golf ball. All right, so you go wide to then narrow. Ooh, I nicked it, so I even gotta get my arms more now. Wide, narrow. All right, you can hit a golf ball that way. Let's put the golf ball right there. All right, you go super wide. It's gonna feel very reachy. Then you gotta narrow in. Yeah, that was pretty good. I saw the chopstick jump, but that just jumped. So when I checked, this was almost dead center, just slightly toe. All right, so dead center again, and the strike was right there. So there's the concept. That would help somebody very well if they struggled with heel strikes, learning how to make that massive change of space that they started with. The opposite would be true if you're a toer. So you're going to start on the low side and then hit the high side. You're going to have to get a little closer in exaggeration here. Chopsticks must be used for path and alignments. We'll get into that in other videos. All right. Low and then high, right? So we're going for the low and then high so we don't toe it. I feel like I got to even get closer to do this. There we go. Nice and nippy tight with my arms right now. Good. Slightly thin, but it'll work. Bite. There you go. Low on face, but mainly centered. All right, so I thinned it a little bit, like I said. Didn't extend my arm enough. I'm going to go over that video right now. Like, share, comment, please ask questions. Let's get into that idea of path as well, too. So here's the concept. What for years people have always thought if you come more over the top, you would heel it. So let's say I set up and I get my hands too high and I go way out to in. My arms come off my body, and then I hit the heel side because my arms are too far off the body. I had some players that were used to swing so far out to in like that, but at the end, they would dive their arms close in and toe the ever-living heck out of it. So whether you swing out to in or in to out, it doesn't matter because here's now in to out extreme. All right, so we could swing in to out and then get the arms too far off the body and heel it. Or we could swing in to out, get the arms very close to the body, and toe it. So path and face combinations are for direction. They don't influence contact as much as people think they do. Like, follow, share this time. Ask some questions in the comments. Hope the new audio and the visuals are going to help. I'm going to screenshot the new really awesome software from Trackman that actually shows 3D motion measurement. When we look at the measurements of myself versus Taylor Gooch, who is going to be very similar in the path and pattern that we use with our hands path and how we reestablish that space at the end, hit the center of the face. And we'll look at as well Brant Snedeker to show what a tight spacer can do. The thing that I want to point out that's really cool about Trackman's new software is their 3D motion measurement where it captures a couple of different points. The points we're going to look at from down the line are just going to be the left wrist. So that little dot right here on Taylor and myself, that is literally going to track the motion measurement of my left wrist and his left wrist action throughout the golf swing. So it's going to let us see the original starting space that we have. All right, let's get that, come back up, get rid of that. Good. So you can see how like there's a space here and a space here. So that space that we start with, that has to be re-established. If that space is changed at all, let's get rid of that, then we are going to have issues with contact. So if we have our space come back over here at the end, it would be a heel strike. If we have it come back too much over here at the end, it's going to be a toe strike. Same for Taylor. So if he has that arm space come too far out over here, it would be definitely a hosel rocket. If he had it come too far in here, it would be a heel strike. So let's kind of take a watch and take notice of the hand's path that's being traced here. Very similar swings, very similar positions. Right, we both get our, at the top of the backswing, right here. He gets the club a little bit less across the line, but we get it behind the trail shoulder right here, behind the trail shoulder. And then that club will work behind our hands. And we'll work on a similar path and downswing, you'll see here. All right, so our arms come a little bit off the original line that we came back on, but we're definitely deep hand path players. And then right here, you look, that's where the original space was. That's the original space right there. So I have to even work back just a little bit to the left to make sure I don't heel it.
So right there, we're both a little bit outside the original space line, but we'll both exit our hands just a little bit left here to get back to that original space line. And then we'll get right to impact. Good. So look at impact here, and where the original space was, it's relatively reestablished. It's not the exact point, but it's pretty darn close. Same thing, let's go back to my impact there. Same, here's my original space, there's the space it establishes to. So we're relatively going to keep it pretty centered. All right, if that space would have come too far off, and that would be hosel. If that space came too far under, that would definitely be more of a toe strike. Same for Taylor, same for any player. So Taylor would be considered more of a wider space player right here, whereas I look to be very much more on the narrower side of spacing because I tend to toe it. So on this one, you probably even say I might have had that just a millimeter or two towards the heel side bias in terms of where that strike location was, even though it was hit pretty solid. With a 130 smash, he had a 1.29 on his, so we both hit those pretty good. Heck, I actually hit my 9-iron farther than he hit his 8-iron there, which I'm pretty shocked. Must have been a pretty cold day outside there. All right, let's now take a look in terms of comparison mode at our second player, Brent Snedeker, who is much more of a tight space player. Okay, so if you look at the original space, he's like me, gets his hands much more elbows on, and his space here is very nippy tight to the body. So he has to be able to reestablish that space. And again, similar hand pass. He's a little bit more higher over the trail shoulder. If you're watching that downswing, we both come a little over the original hand path we went back on. And then he has to now from here, if he stayed on that line, he would heel the ball. Same with me. So you'll see how he rounds that back into the left right here. And starts moving the hand path left. Now the hand path is almost identical right before impact to where it originally started space-wise. Let's look at impact. Bam. Look at how nippy tight. He has really very little space going on right there. Okay? Whereas I definitely get a little wider off the body. Probably can try to avoid some toe strikes. Hope the video helps, everybody. Please ask some questions. This is some really cool stuff that Trackman's got out here, and I hope the audio came out right on this with the mic I hooked up to the computer. Take care, go get at it, and use those drills I gave in this video.